Hello everyone, it's me Uncle Chan. Today I am going to read S6-6041, Arthur and the Double Day. Chapter 4. When Arthur woke the next morning, he opened his eyes and "Arf!" he cried. There's no need to scream, said DW, was staring at him from just inches away. It's only me. DW, what are you doing here? It's an experiment. Mom kept calling to you and you kept not answering. So I thought I would come in and see how many times it took before you woke up. I didn't sleep very well, Arthur muttered. He rolled over to the side of the bed. Now, if you have finished experimenting, please get out so I can get dressed. A few minutes later, Arthur came down to the kitchen. He was dressed and had washed his face, but he still looked half asleep. You better hurry, said his mother. You don't want to be late for school. Arthur yawned as he poured himself some cereal and milk. Suddenly, DW started to laugh. The milk had spilled over the edge of the bowl onto the table. Ha ha, Arthur said grumpily. He cleaned up the mess and stumbled over to the phone. Oh, then he called Buster. Buster, it's me. He yawned again. I can't go through with it. I don't care if Francine did dare me. At home in his kitchen, Buster was yawning too. I can't go through with it either. I'm so tired. I just put some bread in the refrigerator to toast. And it's all the fault of this dream I had. There was the giant clam that told me that if I didn't go to school, I'd be digested. And all I know is that when a clam tells you to do something, you do it. That's so weird, said Arthur. I had the same dream and Arthur stopped because he saw that DW was no longer eating her breakfast. She was listening to his every word. Go away, he said. I'm on the phone. It's a free country, said DW. It may be free, but that doesn't mean I won't make you pay later. He cupped his hand over the phone. Buster, he continued in a whisper, can you call everyone and tell them the you know what is cancelled? I can't talk anymore right now. Can't do, said Buster. He hung up and called the brain. Everything is off, he said. I'll explain more at school. Thank goodness, said the brain. I had the strangest dream about this clam. Really? Said Buster. So did I. They compared dreams for a minute. Oh, Buster said suddenly, I forgot. I have to call Francine. See you later. But when he dialed Francine, no one answered. She's probably in the bathroom or something, he thought. Or just leave a message. Buster, you better get a move on, said his mother, who was getting ready for work. Right, he said. He left a message, hung up the phone, and picked up his backpack. Then he scooted out the door. Too many phone calls, he mumbled, hoping he wouldn't be late. Chapter 5. All right, class, said Mr. Rappan. Let's settle down. The bell is going to ring in a minute. Arthur gulped. As he looked around the room, he saw everyone taking a seat. Everyone, that is, except Francine. Brain, where is Francine? He asked. The brain shrugged. I can't say. I haven't seen her. Arthur turned around. Buster, he whispered. Have you seen Francine? Buster shook his head. I thought you called her, Arthur said. I did, Buster said. Well, was there any way she didn't understand what you were saying? I don't know, Arthur frowned. What do you mean, you don't know? Well, Buster explained. I didn't actually talk to her. I left a message on her machine. You did? Arthur bit his lip. I figured she was in the bathroom or something. Buster went on. Arthur frowned. It was or something he was worried about. Francine was worried too. She had been standing by the bush for almost half an hour. It was not a very interesting bush and didn't give her much to look at. For a while she had been distracted by the keys passing by every few minutes, but now the street was quiet. Where are they? She muttered, looking at her watch. Just because they were skipping school didn't mean they were allowed to be late. After all, she had been on time. She had even ignored the ringing phone at her house in order to stay on schedule. When I make a promise, she said, I keep it. She stared at the ground, shaking her head. Francine was polishing the armor in her castle when a messenger came rushing in. Francine, it's the dragon, he gasped. Which dragon? She asked. There are so many. The green one, as big as this castle, whose fiery breath can melt rocks. Francine nodded. Oh, that dragon. What about him? He has dared you to meet him in single combat. The messenger took a deep breath. What will you do? What will you do? What will you do? Francine examined the edge of a sword. Meet him, of course. Let's see. I'll put him down for next Thursday. Okay. Oh, wait. She looked at her calendar. Thursday is no good. That's when I'm meeting the two-headed giant by the edge of the forest. He, or is it they, dared me first. Find out if the dragon is free on Wednesday. The messenger nodded and started to leave. Then he turned back. May I ask you something? He said. Francine stopped polishing. Of course. How do you do it? I mean, you get one dare after another. You never turn any down. No matter how they pile up. That is true, said Francine. But I have no choice. A dare must be accepted. That's the rule. Can the rule ever be broken? Francine shrugged. Maybe by some people, but not me. Francine looked at her watch again. Even if all the boys were late, at least one of them would have arrived by now. It's 9 o'clock already. Shoot, I'm gonna kill those guys. She hesitated for another moment and then headed off to school as fast as she could. Chapter 6. Psst. Buster flicked his hand at the fly. He thought was buzzing around him. Everyone was completing a worksheet Mr. Rappon had handed out. Psst. Buster flicked his hand again. Psst. Buster looked up to see Francine's head popping up at an open window. Hi, Francine, he said. Where is Mr. Rappon? Whispered Francine. Out in the hall, talking with Mrs. McGrady about the lunch count. Buster stared at her. What are you doing out there? What am I doing out here? What are you and Arthur and the brain doing in there? I thought we had a deal. We called it off, said Buster. Didn't you get my message? No. I waited and waited and waited. We're sorry, said Arthur, was relieved that Francine had at least shown up. But why haven't you come in? The front door is locked now. Francine said, I can't get in without ringing the bell. If I do that, I'll have a lot of explaining to do. I need to get in some other way. Arthur thought for a moment. Meet us at the window outside the boys' bathroom, he told her. Okay, she said, and ducked out of sight. A few minutes later, Arthur and Buster entered the boys' bathroom. Arthur quickly walked over to the window in the far wall. Wait a minute, Arthur, said Buster. Haven't you forgotten something? What's that? Arthur asked. Girls aren't allowed to go into the boys' bathroom, Buster said. Arthur paused. Well, that's okay. Francine won't be going in. She won't? No, she'll only be going out. Oh, said Buster. That's a relief. Arthur stuck his head out the window and called to Francine, who wasn't sure which window was which. Over here. Francine ran over, reached up toward the window sill. Not tall enough, she said. You're going to have to help. Arthur reached down and grabbed her wrist. He said. You may not be tall enough, but you're heavy enough. Heavy enough? Don't just let me hang there, said Francine. Pull me up. Buster, Arthur groaned. I need your help. Check. Buster grabbed Arthur by the belt and pulled. Ow, said Arthur. Not so hard. Arthur, said Francine. Pay attention. You're going to drop me. I'm doing the best I can, said Arthur. You're too heavy. I'm not too heavy. I weigh less than you do, Francine said. Well, I don't normally pull myself through a bathroom window. Hey. Arthur's belt was starting to slide loose. Oh, watch out, cried Buster. Don't let go. Wait it, wailed Francine. Buster fell back with Arthur's belt as Arthur started to slide out the window. He grabbed the window sill in time, but had to let go of Francine. She dropped down to the ground, back where she had started. Sorry, said Arthur. Francine looked up angrily. Now what? Need some help. Arthur and Buster whirled around to find Binky standing behind them. They explained what was happening. Binky seemed very calm. I know what to do. I saw it in a movie once. He leaned out the window. Leave it to me, Francine, he said. I have a plan. Chapter 7. A short time later, Arthur and Buster were back in the classroom. Binky had described his plan to them. While they had no reason to think it would work, neither of them had any better plan to put in its place. Whatever we do, said Arthur, rubbing his arms, I am not playing Francine through any more windows. Binky walked by them and tucked on his ear. Why did he do that? Why did he do that? Asked Buster. Don't you remember? Said Arthur. That's the signal. Why do we need a signal? Said Buster. That was in the movie too. So what do we do after he makes the signal? Asked Buster. We wait, said Arthur. Buster frowned. For what? Suddenly Binky started screaming and hopping around on one foot. Ow! Ouch! Hey! Ow! While Mr. Rappan hurried over to see what was the matter, Arthur and Buster tiptoed out of the room, past the principal's office, and toward the front door. But Francine wasn't there. What is she? Said Buster. She's supposed to be here. Arthur frowned. Yes, guess she didn't see the same movie Binky saw. He poked his head out the door and saw Francine standing way down the driveway at a different door. Francine, Arthur hissed. Over here. She shook her head. You're supposed to be over here. She hissed back. No. Buster put in. You're supposed to be. I'm not. You're supposed. The bell rang. Hurry up, said Arthur. Do you want to get inside the school or not? We don't have much time. Meanwhile, Binky had moved out into the hall. He was still hopping but quickly getting tired. Mr. Rappan was watching him closely. Do you require medical attention, Mr. Barnes? He asked. It's my shoe, Mr. Rappan. Too tight, I guess. Then I suggest you get a new pair, said Mr. Rappan. Mr. Rappan turned to go back in the classroom and noticed Arthur and Buster standing at the front door. They appeared to be yelling at someone outside. It must be the full moon, he muttered to himself and headed toward them. No, wait, cried Binky. I think it's my socks. They are elastic. They hurt. You need to look at them. But Mr. Rappan was no longer listening. He was just striding down the hall with Arthur and Buster clearly in his sight. What's going on? He asked, just as Francine slid inside the open door. Arthur, Buster, and Francine turned to face him and all started talking at once. It's not what you think. Well, but it is, but not really. Actually, we can explain, I hope. The commotion even brought Principal Haney out of his office. What's going on? He asked. Francine, are you just getting to school? Mr. Rappan asked. Mr. Haney eyed the kids sternly. I think you better all come to my office. That way we can get everything straightened out. Chapter 8. Buster, Arthur, Binky, and Francine all sat outside Mr. Haney's office. None of them was sitting up very straight. Through the window, they could see Mr. Haney, Mr. Rappan, and Francine's dad, Mr. Fransky, talking together. They didn't seem to be yelling or arguing, but then they didn't seem to be trading jokes either. Francine put her head in her hands. I'm doomed. When I looked in Mr. Rappan's eyes, my whole life passed before me. Did you see all the good parts? He asked Buster. Francine sighed. But no more question. The condemned prisoner usually gets the last meal. I bet I won't even get that. Not necessarily, said Buster. I heard about this one girl who got expelled, but then she got a job selling donuts. And now she can eat as many as she wants without paying. That's even better than a last meal. I don't want to get a job. I'd rather go to school. Maybe they will only expel you for a year, said Buster. Arthur made a face at Buster and patted Francine on the shoulder. Don't pay any attention to Buster, he said. He's just exaggerating. He is? Asked Francine. Absolutely, said Arthur. They will never expel you for being late. Francine brightened a little. That's a relief. Phew. They might make you come in early every day for a month to wash the lunchroom floor, but that wash the floor? I don't want to wash floor. I don't blame you, said Binky. They get pretty sticky. And the whole thing is really not your fault, said Arthur. You can say that again, said Francine. It is your fault, Arthur. If you hadn't made me dare you, none of this would have happened. None of this would have happened. Me? I didn't make anyone do anything. You are the one who. Before Arthur could protest further, Mr. Haney's door opened and everyone came out. Arthur was hoping that one of them might crack a little smile, but he had no such luck. The stern faces might as well have been carved in stone. Mr. Fransky spoke first. I'm very disappointed in you, Francine. Where on earth did you get the idea to skip school? Francine glared at Arthur. It just came to me, I guess. She slumped down on the bench. My own stupid idea. Mr. Haney cleared his throat. Then I'm afraid you'll have to spend all of next week after school. I'm treating this as a warning, Francine, because you have never done anything like this before. However, I will not be so forgiving should this ever happen again. It won't, Francine said in a small voice. I'm also quite disappointed in you, Francine, said Mr. Rappan, which I'm afraid makes the disappointment unanimous, said her father. I'm sorry, said Francine in a voice so small it could only been heard by a mouth. It could only have been heard by a mouth. Chapter 9. The matter had been settled. The judge had spoken and the prisoner had received her punishment. The whole thing was finished, over. At least most people would have looked at it that way, but not Arthur. Wait, he said, this isn't fair. The Francine wasn't the only one involved. It wasn't her idea to begin with. It was my idea. Oh, said Mr. Haney. Oh, said Mr. Rappan and Mr. Fransky together. Uh-oh, said Buster all by himself. Francine said nothing, but she gave Arthur a grateful look. Only not exactly, Arthur went on. I mean, I never meant it for real, and I don't think Francine did either. The thing just took on a life of its own, like one of those monsters in those old sci-fi movies. You see, once the dare started, Brain said we had to do it, and there was no way to watch Dark Bunny and do our homework, because Mr. Rappan had given us so much of it. He took a deep breath. So, Arthur, what are you trying to say exactly? Asked Mr. Haney. And keep it brief. Arthur stopped to think just that, well, if Francine had to be punished, then I should be punished with her. Buster stood up. Arthur is right. Francine wasn't alone. I was there. The double dares sucked me in like a giant vacuum cleaner. They punished me too. And me, said Binky, who was beginning to feel a little left out. Don't forget me. But Binky, you weren't there yesterday when we dared each other. You didn't have anything to do with it. All right, Binky waved his arms like an umpire calling the runner safe a second. Forget me then. Just forget me. Pretend I'm not here. Oh, I don't think we should do that entirely. Mr. Apple pointed out, after all, Mr. Barnes, you did put on quite a display of fancy footwork. It wasted some valuable class time. Binky's face reddened as he looked down at his shoes. But we're all involved, said Arthur. They should count for something. That should count for something. Mr. Rappan exchanged a look with Mr. Haney. I suppose it does, he said, and I applaud your spirit. But since you changed your mind and made it to school, you weren't late, so it makes no sense to punish you for that. But Arthur began. However, Mr. Rappan continued, you did leave the classroom without permission. I also suspected you failed to do your homework for today. Is that so? Arthur and Buster nodded. In all the commotion, they had forgotten about that little detail. So Mr. Rapon continued, for that infraction, I will give you an extra summon, which is kind of like being punished. Buster whispered to Arthur. Arthur nodded, and in this case, somehow being punished made him feel much better, and he could tell from the look on Francine's face that it made her feel better too. Chapter 10. Later that day, Mr. Rapon entered the teacher's room and carefully closed the door. Once he was out of sight of any student, he permitted himself a small smile. One thing about third graders, they were never dull. Busy day, Red? Asked Mr. Marco, was grading some tests. Mr. Rapon nodded. It had its moment. Did you bring the tape? Mr. Marco handed him a videotape, which Mr. Rapon slid into the VCR in the corner. Then he sat down in a chair and pressed the remote control. I just don't understand, he said. Why good students would choose to skip school or fall behind on their homework. He shook his head. They need to learn to plan ahead. Maybe I'll design a new unit for next quarter. The tape came on. And now, said the TV announcer, it's time to watch your favorite, the hairy hero, as he battles the 60-foot squid. I hope you're in your bathing suit, because that's the best way to enjoy the next 90 minutes of oceanic action, all right? This should be good. It's a great one. Wait till you see the giant clam. For something that lives in the water, looks like it could use an industrial strength bath. Just absolutely disgusting the way it sucks up Bunny and... Shh! Holding a finger to his lips. Don't spoil the ending.